and welcome to another episode of the Horn Call podcast. My name is James Bolden. I'm the publications editor for the IHS and one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Kate Warren. And today we had another Kate on the podcast, Kate Caliendo. And she spoke about a myriad of things, including her life as a performer, an educator, a composer, and a social media influencer. And we're really keen to have you all listen to this amazing episode that we had with her.
So without further delay, here is our conversation with Kate Caliendo. So excited to have you here, Kate Caliendo. We've got two Kates with us today, Kate Caliendo and Kate Warren. So excited to see you both and get a chance to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me here. So excited to get to talk with you both.
Yeah. And, before we started rolling, we kind of have this, list of stuff we want to get to, but I think it's always good when we start to maybe for anyone who's not aware of who you are or what you're currently doing, maybe give us like the nutshell description of, what you're doing in the music world and otherwise just kind of up to you.
Sure. So I am currently second horn of the Jacksonville Symphony. I've been a member of the orchestra this is my 10th season. And before that, I played in the Houston Symphony, fourth horn for a couple years. And my first job was fourth horn of the San Antonio Symphony for a couple years. This year, for the rest of 2025 and until the beginning of 2026, I'm actually on a sabbatical from the symphony just to focus on some personal projects. I'm also beginning to teach horn at the University of North Florida, so UNF. And I also am active on social media. So I have a lot of projects there, content there. I also like to do recordings, like little snippets of recordings and my own transcriptions, compositions, and arrangements. So that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Excellent. Yeah, I think anybody who's familiar with you outside of kind of like, the local sphere probably knows you through Instagram. And like, I'm a big fan of your compositions, your etudes, warm-ups, all of that stuff. So if you don't know about Kate Caliendo's website, we'll get all of that into the show notes and direct people to your stuff because I think it's really good.
Oh, thank you so much. And I have to say, so Kate Warren, this is the first time I think we've actually gotten to really speak face to face. And I've known you through social media for a long time now. So it's been really cool to watch your content. And I'm so excited to get to talk with you.
Likewise, it's always really interesting to me how you can have a relationship with someone online for so long. Like I feel I know so many things about you. And this is the first time we've ever spoken. And I'm really keen to hear you talk about all of these things that James just outlined. But first, for our listeners, do you think you could tell us how you got started on the French horn?
Sure. So I grew up in a very musical family. My father is a retired band director, and my mom is a huge lover of music and the arts. And so I grew up plunking out little tunes on the piano, and I always knew I wanted to be in band. So when it came time to pick our instruments, I thought I was going to play the flute because that's what I had wanted to do ever since I could remember. But I actually learned from our music teacher as she was going through all of the instruments. She said, now the French horn is special because the horn player actually puts their hand inside the bell. And for some reason that clicked. I was like, yes, I want to do that. I want to be one with the instrument. And it's so funny to me that one statement has altered the course of my life.
That's so cool. I don't think I've ever heard of a horn player who was like, yeah, the selling point for me was my hand winning the bell.
I know. I remember being at a masterclass with Dale Clevenger one time, and he was talking to all of us horn players, and he said, okay, now why did you pick the horn? And pretty much everybody said the sound, and I stayed quiet. And he said, yes, if you didn't choose the horn because of the sound, like you need to choose it because of the sound. I was like, oh, I'm just not going to say anything.
That's funny. And so did you always know from an early age that this is the path you wanted to go down? Or if not, were there other things you might have considered along the way? I'm always interested in like that moment when people are like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, it's a good question because there was never really a point where I made a decision, yes, I'm going to go into music. There were definitely other things that I considered. I liked art history, I like English, I really like French. Since being a professional, sometimes I've thought about, oh, well, if I weren't doing music, what would I do? And, psychology or translation. There's a lot of other interests I have, but I'd say as I especially started playing the horn and going through bands and ensembles, I just really I enjoyed what I was doing and I enjoyed the people I was around. I just felt like I fit in with them. I felt like they were my people. So it just made sense. It was the next logical step. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to go to school for music. Okay, if I'm in school for music, I'm going to try to get a music performance job or teaching job or whatever.
I'm trying to think how best to get into your the topic of neurodivergence, because I think it's super important. Do you want to kind of help us sort of figure out how we want to go down that path?
If you bring up performance anxiety, there's a lot of ways that it ties into how performance anxiety was impacting me.
Okay.
So, performance anxiety was something that I really, really struggled with. I'd say for the second half of high school and then into college, it was one of the main things I really had to overcome in order to be successful at winning an audition. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of things. I tried everything, all of the books and tapes and, whatever meditation or whatever I could do, practice techniques, everything. I tried it all. And, through all of that, and also just by building confidence and knowing like, okay, I've done this before. I can go here and do it again. It won't be as scary. I just learned how to manage and learned how to cope. And what's really interesting for me is that, if you see my social media now, you might see that I talk a lot about neurodivergence. I've only just learned within the past year and a half that I have ADD. It's not something that was ever thought about in school because I was always a good student and I followed the rules. I wasn't a problem child. So, nobody would have ever thought, they just never thought that I would have ADD. But since finding out that that is how my brain works, I've realized that so many of the thoughts that would come up, that would be what would actually trigger the performance anxiety. Those were just all my mind racing. That's the ADD. That's the fast thoughts like coming in quicker than I can handle. And it would be, the little things like, oh my gosh, what if I forget how to read in bass class? Or what if I forget this piece? Or like, oh, that slur is coming up. I got to make sure that I really get that. Oh no, that slur. Oh my gosh. Okay. What's going to happen next? And once I learned how to better accommodate the ADD, like I'm just in the moment. And I'm not thinking all those things, and then I don't get as anxious, and like my mind is just more present. And it's even little things like, we've all been there. We're counting, we're listening to the music, and we're counting our 20 bars of rest, and it's like, okay, keep track, don't lose count. Okay, 20, okay, and then it's like, wait, where am I? Like no matter how hard I would try to pay attention, it just wait, what? Like the act of paying attention, but so realizing that was just ADD has helped me take a lot less personally. It's helped me not compare myself to other people as much, and it's really challenged me to find the things that really work for me to make me feel comfortable.
So what type of tools have been helpful for you in your practice then?
So before I actually even knew it was ADD, one of the things I would struggle with is kind of that procrastination. Like I'd be like, okay, I really want to practice, but I just can't. So some things I would do is like, okay, let me just unpack my horn. I'll just unpack my horn and set it on the chair. That's it. So then 5 or 10 minutes later, I can just go pick up my horn and start practicing. I'd say also one of the biggest things that has been helpful is setting timers. So instead of like, oh, okay, I have to go practice this lick until I can play it. It's like, no, I'm just going to practice for 20 minutes. I'm just going to work on music editing for 20 minutes. And then when it's done, I can take a break. And that's been really helpful too. And then of course, like I don't want to push pharmaceuticals at anybody. There's something that, I just think everybody should talk with their doctors and find what works best for them. I will say that having had the opportunity to try a medication for ADHD, it was just like night and day. I just couldn't believe how much I had been struggling with and not even known it. So yeah, I think even just looking at that as an option of what's possible, or just at least realizing, wow, like all these racing thoughts, I don't have to think that that's just something inherent to me. That's something that I can learn to just tune down and not really pay so much attention to.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So what you mentioned, you only recently got the diagnosis. Was there, what made you want to pursue that possibility further? Because a lot of times, people get into adulthood and they're often very successful like you are. And like you said, you just were like, okay, that's something I have to deal with. But what made you take that step to sort of try to discover more about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've been pretty open about the fact that I've struggled with burnout for a long time. So yes, I feel like a lot of people, myself, I was really successful in school. I had good grades. I did well in school, and then everything just got progressively harder and harder. And then, it just kind of all built up, and I was just almost constantly struggling with burnout. And I was talking to a friend, and she just happened to mention, this was during the pandemic, and there were a lot of shortages on ADD medication. And she was telling me that she wasn't able to get her ADD medication because it was on back order, and like her whole life was just kind of falling apart. She wasn't able to sleep. She wasn't able to like keep her house clean and do all these things. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That kind of sounds like some of the things that I struggle with. So that's kind of what prompted me to try and like go for talking to doctors and trying to, pursue some testing and see what came up.
I was thinking like, okay, yes, ADD, and you're dealing with it and, all of this stuff, but then you also have so many other awesome things going on. Like you're composing, you have social media. I think you're a heck of a gardener too, right? I've seen some,
Yes.
I've seen some flower pictures.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about this multifaceted approach? Like, all of the different, streams you've got going on?
Well, and honestly, when you were just saying that, what it was making me think of was a gardening analogy. We have these labels, neurotypical and neurodivergent, but who's to say what's typical and what's divergent? If you look at the natural world, there are so many different kinds of flowers. I mean, if we labeled roses normal, then every other type of flower or plant that needed different amounts of sun or water or soil, then like they would be considered the other and they would be divergent. And really, that's not the case. We just all have different expressions of who we are. So and this is something I love about teaching is I really enjoy teaching students and seeing who they are, helping them figure out how does music relate to their life and how do they best learn about things and what type of, sound and musicality and style are they trying to achieve? And, because everyone's different. I don't really think that anyone is typical. I think everyone is striving to be the best possible blueprint of who they are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I really like how you packaged and phrased that. And a part of the thing that I appreciate the most about your online presence is your transparency about things like this. You are very open about when things are happening in your career that you are okay with or that you aren't okay with. And that type of spokesmanship and advocacy for ourselves and our situations is how we build a stronger, more well-rounded musical community. But to loop it back in with what you were just talking about with teaching, I know you've recently started a new teaching position, and I would love to hear about it. I would love you to tell our viewers where you're at and what this, I know we're only 3 weeks into the semester, but what this experience is for you so far.
Sure. Both of my parents are retired teachers. My dad is a retired band director and my mom is a retired elementary school teacher. So I feel like I've always grown up around schools. Teaching is in my blood. I've always loved being a student. And, I think that translates to also really enjoying teaching. So I am so thrilled to be at UNF this year adjunct professor of horn. It feels so like fancy being Professor Caliendo. But yeah, so I teach the students who are taking French horn lessons. So French horn majors, performance majors, ed majors, majors in other instruments who are taking horn lessons. And yeah, it's just really exciting. The campus is beautiful. It's
This
gorgeous
is
school in
Jacksonville, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Florida state school. So I'll also put I gotta put the word out there, but I think, for any students anywhere, but especially for people in Florida that can benefit from in-state tuition, it's a great option if you're looking for a school, not even just to major in music, but that has a really good music program, so you can participate in that during your schooling.
I am a product of the Florida public state education. I went to college. I did my undergrad at Florida State on a Bright Futures Florida state level sponsored scholarship. So I'm really glad that you said that, because there are some, and not just in Florida. I know there are a bunch of very similar scholarships everywhere. And like the opportunity for students to study at affordable rates at great institutions is not to be snubbed.
Yes. And, I know I may be a little biased because I teach there. You can get great education at a state school, at a conservatory. There's great teachers and great programs everywhere. So, finding what works for each student, I think, is really important.
That's excellent. And you did some teaching at Round Top too, right? You were on faculty there?
Yes, that's such a, I feel so grateful to be there. It's such a full circle moment for me. That was the kind of the first big festival I ever did as a student. And so now I've been teaching there for the past 3 years. And, I've had one student there that I actually worked with as a high schooler when I was teaching at Idlewild. And we've had a couple students at Round Top come back for multiple summers. And of course, I love working with all the new students too. It's just such a cool thing, especially to work with them for just 6 weeks over the summer. You're not going to get into the same things that you might get into in a full-time program, but it's really fun to work on all the orchestra music with them and just kind of coach them through Brahms and Mahler and Respighi and, share the things that I hear just as having been someone that's been in an orchestra for a long time. And then watch them kind of implement that. That is the coolest thing, when you coach a horn section and by the end of the week, you're like, oh, I hear the style and they're playing together. It's just so cool.
That's fantastic. And one of your former teachers, Michelle Baker, used to be there. Michelle was there in 2003 when I was a student. So that just immediately dated me. But yeah. So
well, that's okay. I only missed you by 3 years then, because I was first there in 2006.
Yeah, it's a very special place. It's like Round Top is like population 76, I think. It's a very, very small town.
I think this summer it was 87, maybe.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magical. I feel like when you describe it to people, it kind of sounds really surreal. Like, oh, there's this beautiful concert hall and all this intricate woodworking and these dorms and all of these incredibly talented college students go there every summer and put on these fantastic concerts, and they're from all over the world, and the conductors are from all over the world, and there's a giant 4th of July parade. And yeah, I definitely would encourage anyone who wants to do a summer festival in music to consider applying to Round Top. Also, the food is great,
Yes.
3 meals a day. So great.
That was the first time I had salsa on my eggs, because I had not been to Texas before. So
did you go to Royers?
Is that Royers the ice cream place or no?
The pie place?
Pie place. I remember people talking about all these places. I didn't leave the campus that much. I kind of was just like, I'm going to stay in the air conditioning.
Yes, it's hot and you got to walk down all the dusty roads. Yeah, it's Texas. It's fun.
In the summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for people who don't know, it's a couple of hours outside Houston. So it's it's very humid.
Yeah.
So we've already started talking not only about your playing, but also about your teaching. And I know something that is really important to you is this aspect of the multifaceted career musician. And if we tie that in with your work on social media and your work with advocacy, can you talk to us some more about what a modern music career you think looks like these days, and how you might be teaching that to your students and modeling that for others.
Sure. Yeah, I think, when I was a student, the path to me seemed go to school, get a job. Like that was it. Whether your job was teaching or whether your job was playing in an orchestra or whether your job was freelancing, like that was your job. That was what you did. And I think for people that want to do that and they're able to do that, that's great. I think, and who knows, maybe it's a part of the way that my brain works and the neurodivergence. Like I like having lots of different irons in the fire. And if I'm feeling maybe a little unmotivated, let's say, to practice, maybe I'll be motivated to compose, or maybe I will be inspired to make a social media post. So for me, I've really enjoyed having different areas in music that I can express myself and different ways of connecting with the community. I mean, when I'm performing at the Jacksonville Symphony, that's a little bit of a different crowd than when I'm connecting with people on social media or, even composing works and releasing those. That might be a little bit of a different crowd. So it's a great way to talk to lots of different people. And I think it's just a great way to be expressive. Also, I think less and less of us, unfortunately, can rely on bills being paid by just one job. So, having different ways of having an income is helpful. But it's not just about that for me. It really is. I just want to pursue all of the things that light me up and make me feel inspired. And yeah, I know I've talked about it before. The reason I got into Instagram was because I was really burnt out from playing. Because I really had made my whole life and my whole identity getting the orchestra job. And I had thought that I got the orchestra job, but then I didn't actually have the orchestra job. And I just felt rushed. And, I didn't know what my place was, or I didn't know if I was going to be able to have another job. And all I knew was that, I like music. I can post these little videos of me playing Lady Gaga or just little fun bass lines, and people seem to really respond to that. So, okay, let's do that. This is fun. And I think most of us go into music because it's fun, because we enjoy it. So anything that fosters that, I think is really helpful. So I like to encourage my students to pursue different avenues so they don't feel like it has to be, all or nothing in one thing.
Yeah, I think it's really good, particularly for young people, but for people of any age to hear that, you're pursuing the things that inspire you and that interest you. And then, if it works out, it will translate into things further down the line, but sort of trying to think you have it all 100% together from the get-go is like kind of setting yourself up for disappointment later. If you think, if I don't do XYZ, then I'm not, quote, successful. That's something that it's hard to get across, particularly to younger students, because they think everything is like set a certain way, but life, you don't really have any control over it sometimes.
No, you don't. Honestly, I don't know, maybe this is a controversial view, but auditions feel so much like a lottery. I mean, yes, we need to be prepared to win them, but you could still be incredibly prepared and have a great day and you still might not win. Like they really can feel like winning the jackpot or winning a lottery. And I see people that are fantastic musicians and creative people, and maybe they question whether they're successful because they haven't won an orchestra job. And I just really want to encourage people to not question that. Like, if you are making music, you are a musician. You don't need to earn a certain income from making music to like be labeled a musician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what sort of dovetails into like your composing, because I'm always interested in that. You're part of rarefied air. There's a lot, there's horn players and there's good horn players, but then there's great horn players who also compose. So if you want to maybe just share a little bit about that, how you got into that, and you've got a new project, a new commission coming up.
Sure. Let's see. Well, One of the things that is very common in people with ADD is getting like little snippets of songs or earworms stuck in your head. And so I always have like little songs going through my head, and frequently I'll just wake up in the morning and there'll be like a tune in my head. And so recently I've started writing them down, and for my newest work, that's kind of where a lot of the inspiration for my themes came from. But how did I get into composing? Wow. The first project I really felt inspired to do was the low horn etudes, and that was a big reach for me because I had never done anything like that. And yeah, like you, I've had to write, my modal counterpoint and counterpoint things in class, but I've never taken a composition class, except for like a little elective at a summer festival or something. But I was close with somebody who had also trained as a musician and just decided to write their own music and was very successful like that. And I was like, well, if they can do that, there's no reason why I can't do that. And so I wrote for horn. I forget where I heard it or who said it, but there was an author who said, like, you should write what you want to read. So I kind of approached composing like that, like, okay, well, let me write what I want to play. And that's where the etudes came from.
I really like those etudes, Kate, by the way.
Oh,
I know I picked them up, I think 2 years ago. I was a little late to picking them up. And when I was in Japan, I pulled them out because my whole book was above the staff. And I was like, if all I do is play above the staff, I'm going to come back and have horrible tour chops. So you know what I need to do in my free time? Probably Kate Caliendo's low horn etudes.
Don't skip leg day. Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad. Yeah, it's, I had no idea how people were going to relate to them. And I just remember when I was composing them, I would keep saying, wow, this is so stupid. Like, what a stupid idea. But that's okay. Like, I'll do it. It brought me a lot of joy.
And that's very similar to how I felt writing both of my fundamentals books. I was like, nobody's really going to want this. Everybody's going to make fun of me. And then one of the magical things about the internet is everybody tells you how much they like it and how great they are. And you're like, oh, I guess this really was worth the time and the effort and the investment because somebody else also thought there was value to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool to see that. And then I think that helps us grow in confidence. And I really think the biggest hurdle to going from solely being a performer to branching out as a composer is just that, the imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm not a composer. It's like, no, of course you are. Can you write music? Yes, you are a composer. You might not be a great composer at first, but you can always improve. And certainly, I'm not
anybody's
talking
a great anything like that when they start.
Yeah, I was certainly not a great horn player when I started.
Me either.
Yep, we improve. I was definitely not a great gardener when I started. That's been a learning curve. But I mean, I think we're just all here to grow. That's one of the wonderful things about music is there's always ways that we can keep growing.
Oh. Is there a reason that your new commission is called Moonflower? Can you tell us the story about that?
Yes. That's such a great point. And honestly, that is pure synchronicity. So a friend and colleague of mine, Deb Cheryl Ward, who lives in Charleston, and I'll plug her Charleston Horn Camp. She runs a really great horn camp for, I think it's high school students every summer in Charleston. But she reached out and asked me if I would be interested in commissioning a piece in memory of a friend and colleague of hers who sadly passed away. And he was a horn player and he really enjoyed moonflowers. They were, I guess, one of his favorite flowers. And they had moonflower seeds passed out at his memorial. So she wanted the piece to be named Moonflower, which I just thought was so beautiful and touching. And she didn't even know at the time that I had gotten so much into gardening. So, yeah, I mean, part of what I thought about when writing the piece was this was really the first season where, I planted some seeds and I watched them sprout, and it is so exciting. Like when you put something in the dirt and then you go back sometimes the next day and there's like a little sprout, you're like, oh my gosh, like it grew from a little seed. And I think it's just such a beautiful title for a memorial piece too, because it just talks about the cycle of a moonflower. The moonflower is one that blooms at night. So the sun comes out and the flower goes away. And yeah, it was really emotional for me writing the piece. And I'm just really thankful to her and grateful to have been asked to do that. So the piece is actually finished. And Deb's going to be premiering it, I think, in Savannah. She has a couple performances lined up for this fall. So anybody who's in the Savannah area, I'll definitely be advertising that.
And is it available for purchase for other people who are interested in playing it?
It will be later, probably sometime around the holidays or maybe just after the new year. I wanted to make sure to give her time to really, just enjoy it. And I'm so excited to hear her play it. And, it's lots of kind of John Williams-esque melodies. It's for unaccompanied solo horn, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes long. And yeah, I wanted to write something that would hopefully be cathartic. And, we all go through so many things in our lives that are hard and that are challenging. And whether or not we've lost somebody already, we almost certainly will lose somebody at some point in our lives. And, when I go through hard times, playing something that allows me to just express how I feel without having to like think about it or label it or even just write it down in a journal, like it's a way for me to process things. So I wanted to hopefully add to that canon so people have, another outlet for expressing things that they might have a hard time saying.
I'm looking at some images of moonflowers now because I'm not in any way knowledgeable about flowers. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, they're beautiful. They come in some different varieties, different colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they just seem so pure and serene. Yeah.
That's great. Well, for anyone who doesn't know, like what you've got up on your website as far as compositions, do you want to maybe go through some of what you got? You got the low horn and then some other stuff too, right?
Sure. Yeah. Let's give the rundown. I have the 18 virtuosic concert etudes for low horn. I have my own warm-up routine. I love that Kate and I have the Kate warm-up routines going on. So I have my own warm-up routine, which is kind of like all of the exercises that I don't get tired of playing. So the ones that I like don't go cross-eyed playing every day. So I have those. I also have the 3-in-1 designer etudes, which are just 3-in-1 designer range etudes, which are shorter than the low horn etudes, but each one is written out in the low, middle, and high register. So you get to practice all of those different areas. I have a couple things arranged for low horn. I have the Christmas carols or holiday carols arranged for low horn. I also have a classical Christmas for low horn, which includes basically the entire Nutcracker for solo low horn, which was another one I was writing like, oh, this is so stupid, but it would just make me laugh. So I did it.
Not stupid at all. You know what those are really good for? When you turn up in like a high school band room and you're working with their students and you didn't bring a pianist or any kind of playback system. And you're like, okay, I need to play something for these kids so they know I can play the instrument. And it's like, what's something they'll know with like instant recognition, but that also is cool and makes the horn sound cool. So they're very functional. I think they're great.
Also like busking, take him out to the street corner and put your case out. Or, when your family comes over for holidays and grandma says, oh, you're playing horn. Can you play something for me? Okay, sure. Here's the Nutcracker.
I was also not prepared for the tenor clef and the designer etudes. I'm like, seriously, this must be a misprint. Wait, no, it's not a misprint.
I'm not prepared for that one either. But I promise you, it looks way better than it did in either treble or bass clef. And I guess I could have moved it to a different key, but I think we all should be a little challenged to try to read tenor clef. Because honestly, for low horn, if we were proficient in tenor clef, I think that would be the best way to write it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Don't go giving any other composers that idea, Kate Caliendo.
You can only write it. Okay, this is also my view on stopped horn. You can only write it if you are able to do it. So any composers that are going to write for stopped horn, you have to be able to play it. And so I guess, yes, if you're going to write it for horn and tenor clef, you have to be able to play it.
Sounds like you need to write some tenor clef etudes then, just like, trombone players have them. So we need some tenor clef horn etudes.
Maybe I can just do an edition of the low horn etudes where it's in tenor clef.
It'd take me 10 years to get through those.
I was going to say that 50 years from now, horn generations will be listening back to this podcast archive being like, what do you mean that all horn players weren't proficient in tenor clef?
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you both think, though? Do you think it would be something that would be helpful for us to be proficient in, especially in low horn? Or do you think, we've got what we do now and we should just stick with because people seem to not enjoy going back and forth between treble and bass. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer changing clefs? Do you prefer lots of ledger lines? Do you
I prefer changing clefs.
Yeah.
I have no qualms changing clefs, but I also know I'm a product of my upbringing, right? Yeah. If I was raised on tenor clef, I would probably be like, this is great.
Does anybody learn transposition that way anymore? Like the old school Farkas, like 1955, learn it in all these different clefs, and that way it's easy to transpose. I don't know anyone that still transposes that way. I think it's kind of that pedagogy seems to have, moved to something different. But I know what kicks my butt is going from old notation to new notation. Like the Marty Hackelman etudes are all in old notation, and I can get into that after a while. And then if I have to read something in new notation, it messes me up for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we get comfortable at the things we do repeatedly. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, when you were talking about composing and feeling like, it's like feeling a little bit like an imposter. I remember something that another Florida person said, Paul Basler, many years ago at a master class. And, people know Paul's music. He's pretty well recognized as a composer now. But I still remember him saying, the best day he ever had was when he woke up one day and realized he was never going to be Beethoven and he was never going to be Dennis Brain. And it just freed him up, like not having to live up to those expectations of, those things we put on ourselves of, oh, if I'm going to be a composer, I have to be at least as good as this person or at least as good as this person. So,
yeah. When I was able to meet him, Paul Basler, not Dennis Brain or Beethoven, but I was able to meet him at one of his studio recitals a couple years ago. And I was so excited because I found the recording of his 3 hymn tune settings when I was in high school. I had that recording and I just thought they were amazing. The harmonies and his writing was just incredible. I was always so excited to play those pieces. So yeah, when I met him, I was so excited to tell him how inspirational those pieces had been to me. And I think too, for me seeing that, I never questioned whether or not he was a composer. Like he wrote something and put it out there. Obviously he's a composer. So, I think when we do something, other people are way less critical of us than we are of ourselves. Yes, I see everybody nodding. Yeah. But that was a huge thing for me to realize in playing and, in everything. People aren't as critical of us as we are on ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. So you talked about, getting inspiration for composing and inspiration for different activities. But you also mentioned at a certain point in your career feeling burned out. Where do you get the inspiration to just kind of keep going, right? To just trust that if you just keep swimming or whatever, you just keep your head above water, things are going to work out. They might not work out the way you think, but if you want to share maybe a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. In the biggest times of career burnout for me, I have to say I've been really thankful for my support system, my family, my close friends, my teachers and my mentors. Michelle Baker has been such a feature of my life. I'm so thankful to her. She's always been so incredibly supportive. And yeah, I mean, there was a point at which I thought maybe I would walk away from the horn. I had accomplished some things. I didn't have anything to prove, and maybe I would just walk away. And, I'd start getting kind of these invitations out of nowhere to, oh, come play here, and oh, come play here. And then, oh, maybe I'll go, visit this person and take a lesson with this horn player. And stuff just kind of came out of nowhere, it seemed. And I felt like the universe was just kind of encouraging me to keep going. So that with connecting with people on social media has been such an inspiration. Whether it's people, just enjoying the silly little arrangements I do, or, there's people that reach out also and will tell me, there's people that reach out and say, oh, I picked up my horn to practice today because of you inspired me to practice. And I love that. Like, that inspires me. Or people will tell me, I was going through this difficult situation and I, called out this bad behavior because I knew that Kate Caliendo would. And like, that is such, that really makes me feel, I don't know. It's not like I want to say grateful, because I don't like, I wish that weren't the case. I wish that people didn't have to do those things, but I feel really touched that I could be that inspirational to someone, and, that they would think of me as somebody that's calling things out or just trying to be an advocate, and that maybe empowers other people to speak up. Because, what I was trying to get at before is that, like, we all need accommodations. We all need the environment for whatever type of seed we're trying, for whatever type of plant we're trying to grow into. And, I think burnout, if you want to call it that, just happens when we're not being accommodated in the ways that we need. So I think if we had a musical culture that really provides room for everybody's voices and makes everybody feel included and pays a living wage, and, like, is one where a culture where people can actually like thrive doing what they love doing, I suspect there'd be a lot less burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard it described as, your ability or your resources are not equivalent to what you're having to spend out, and that's why you get burned out. You have these demands on you, and then you either don't have the time or the agency or the support that you need to replenish. It's not that you're doing too much; it's that you're not able to
refill.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we all might have different capacities, and two people doing the exact same thing might be refilled differently. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. This has flown by. We could keep going for a long time after that, but it occurs to me that, one thing we've kind of been hinting at all around is having a supportive community. Having community, not just of horn players, but of loved ones, family, friends, that sort of thing. And, it might be nice to kind of wrap up our discussion today and talk a little bit about the horn playing community, the IHS, IHCA, other related organizations, that sort of thing. What the IHS and other groups like it has meant to you over the course of your career, and encouragement for people who aren't a part of that community to join.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been aware of IHS since middle school. My teachers were really involved. And when I started school at Manhattan School of Music, I would flip through, we had an IHS membership, and I would flip through all the issues in the library. And, now that I'm a professional, I love being a member of the IHS. I have all the back issues on my bookshelf right in front of me. It's a great place for like lots of different people, also from like lots of different aspects of the horn to connect, because there's not just one aspect of horn. So I think that's really cool. And with IHCA, I've participated twice, and I mean, that's some of the most I've ever improved as a player was not even just like going there and, it's can be great to get feedback, but just preparing those pieces and knowing I was going to be performing in front of people who really know the horn, and just working on great music. Yeah, I improved so much working on the rep for IHCA. So, and then meeting people there, it's cool. It's a really cool experience. My husband's a neurologist. He goes to neurology conferences. Like, we're horn players. We go to IHCA or we have our IHS membership. And like, that's where we meet other people who do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So for our community members who would like to find more about you or purchase your compositions or follow along, where can they find you?
Sure. I am on social media as either Kate Caliendo or Kate Caliendo Horn. And my website is katecaliendo.com. So all of the compositions are for sale there. And if you want to reach out to me in an email ever, the email is kateplayshorn@gmail.com, which you can also get through my website.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed getting to talk with you both. It's been great. Thank you.
The Horn Call Podcast is the official podcast of the International Horn Society. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this series are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the International Horn Society. Copyright International Horn Society. Music by Brian K.M.